So welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is Life's Podcast, VIDEOCAST with Sujata and Coach Les. And the opportunity of this podcast, first off, is that Sujata and I came together, and clearly we have been disjointed since we had a little family breakdown with Sujata. Her sister passed away a couple weeks ago, and we didn't have any shows for a week, and we're kind of scrambling to get it all back up and running and get it back into existence again. And to tell you a little bit about who Sujata is, and then I'll tell you what we came together to create. Sujata has accumulated a wealth of experience during her life, leading to insights and knowledge that cannot be coached or taught in a class. She's a mother, a wife, a journalist, a consultant, an activist, a leader, and businesswoman domestically and internationally. And in sharing her story, Sujata strives to provide readers of all backgrounds in any part of the world with real-life examples on how to deal with the unpredictable nature of everyday life. And during the course of her life, she has also owned some fun little businesses, dealt with what you will find out in the book is that fought the government system and the corporation system that likes to hide breakdowns in their community and their structure. And we chose to come together inside of the 24-hour Bible study, not to have this be a room where we're literally, opening up the Bible and talking about the Bible. What we're doing is we're looking at two people that are secure in our faith, coming together to share some of life's lessons and do it in a way that you have the experience of two people with integrity. One, excuse me a second, sorry. Somebody was phone calling me, and that took me out of communication with you all. And we've come together to share inside of this app and inside of this club with this room to look at life's lessons through the lens for me as a follower of Christ and Sujata as a follower of God and religion in her own way, and how we view things and looking at how we support integrity and communication throughout different aspects of life and different areas that create breakdowns in our life, and how do we get through them? What are the ways in which we can work our way through some of these breakdowns? So we talked about the last couple of times that we got together, we talked about relationships, and especially men and communication, and how men show up in relationships and how that communication works between a husband and a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, significant others, and looking at when integrity goes out, how do we restore that integrity? What are some of the ways that we can do that? And, for a follower of Christ, there may be ways to get together and share biblical references. And so here up on stage, on Clubhouse and throughout the broadcast, there's an opportunity there for that, as well as coming from Sujata's background and her faith background. So I think what I'd love to do is hand the mic over to Sujata, have her explain a little bit about her faith background so that you can kind of see what we're looking to do and how we're looking to do it with two worlds coming together. And for those of you that are regulars coming to the 24-hour Bible study, our world is, and our commitment to communication is, we are followers of Christ in the 24-hour Bible study. And like Christ, he opened his arms and opened his conversation to every single human being on the planet. It didn't matter where you came from, didn't matter how much money you had, it didn't matter what faith you were. He came to share the word of God. And in so doing that, people started to follow him and became followers of Christ. That is our mission here on Clubhouse. And our mission is to educate people. So if you were to look at the 24-hour Bible study website, you would see our mission is to build a school, a church, and an organic farm. That's our long-term mission. And that church would be teaching not only from the Bible, but it would be teaching other religious works so that people can find that there is faith that shows up in different ways. And as Christ did, he shared his faith and the reason to come and follow him. And that's the way we look at it. So ultimately the goal, yes, for some people would say, well, so what's your ultimate goal? Ultimately, we believe that if people read the Bible and don't look at Christians out there as modern day Christians, because modern day Christianity, one, it's one of the largest businesses in the world. Two, there are 167 different versions of the Bible. So which one is the right one? And everybody has an opinion about that. So in following Christ and following the word and following what he intended and what he's creating, there's a beautiful open arm scenario that creates a level of integrity and faith that allows people all to come in and sit around the fire, sit around the microphone in this case, and share and learn from each other. And in that way, all of our boats rise. So with that, I'm going to hand the mic over to Sujata, and she can share a little bit about where her faith journey is so that you get a little bit of background on her and where she's at in this whole conversation so that you can see what it is that we're creating, working together, and sharing about some of life.
Thank you, Coach Les. And first, I would like to start by saying that in a partnership, both of us can and could be responsible. So, if we forgot the topic for today, then it's not only on you, it's also on me. And for that, I do apologize. Uh, However, as this whole room is about life matters, some things happen in life and it's okay, and we need not to be so hard on ourselves if we forgot something. That's what I feel. Now when we come to faith, it's there in my book about my spiritual experience, which happened in Barcelona in a church and in a monastery where I met God. For the longest period of time, I've been saying that my religion is being human and kind. I have a respect for all religion, and I do have a strong leaning towards Christianity. But for me, it is that if you believe in God and if you, this thing, it's a way of life that will depict in your actions. So if you're kind, if you, do the right things as far as possible, I think that for me is being true to the higher power, whichever faith or religion that one may follow. And that's where I come from, because from childhood we were not taught to be religious, we were taught to be kind and human. And some people don't understand that that's my religion, but that's how it is with me. Thank you so much.
All right. So with that, I think I found some notes that are going to stir up a good conversation for today. And it's no accident, God is a little bit, there's always, in my world, there's a little bit of, see, coach, just show up and I'll give you what there is to talk about today. And, one of the things that I saw, I led my first sermon in a church live with live people this past Sunday. And one of the things that I noticed was, well, first of all, there were 2 white people in the whole church out of about 300 people. One of them was me, and one of them was my wife. And here I am up on stage doing a sermon on communication between parents and kids and parents, wrapped around the kids that are going off to college. So they do a sermon in this church, and they do an award ceremony for all of the graduating seniors that have chosen the next path and where they're headed. And so there were 7 of them that received plaques saying they had completed their religious agreements and their school agreements as seniors and their direction agreements as what they were doing next, i.e. going off to school or college or trade school. And they also each received a little present, a check for some money, i.e. to buy books or buy a backpack, that was a contribution from the church and the church community. And I chose to speak on how parents listen, and we as human beings all listen through these filters that we've developed throughout our life. And the filters that we have between our kids and the filters that the kids have between the adults, the parents, so to speak. And what I had the fun of sharing was my experiences in life as a boy growing up, being a Dennis the Menace. And for those of you, I think pretty much everybody I can see on stage and in the audience knows who Dennis the Menace is. Awesome. If we had a 12-year-old in the room, they might not know who Dennis the Menace is. But inside of that, I shared from my experience of how, as a kid and as a teen, I was always judging my parents and what they did. They couldn't possibly know what I'm going through. They couldn't possibly understand how harsh they were, how strict they were. I went to boarding school when I was 5.5 years old, and lived on campus. And it was a very different experience. Discipline back then, because I'm 58 now, so this is back several years. In last 1969, there was still corporate punishment at this boarding school. The hand, the stick, the slipper, the belt. I had it all. And what that did for me with my relationship with my parents was it gave me a lot of walls, gave me a lot of, I can't believe you did this. I can't believe you sent me here. Then my mother sent me to live with my dad and my stepmom in a foreign country because I was born and raised in England. They sent me to go live with my dad and my stepmom in France. So there was all of this stuff, all of these mechanisms and pieces and filters came between me and my parents. Now as a coach, I see all this. I deal with all of this. And, by a show of thumbs up, if everybody knows how to do that, how many of you remember your parents would tell you something over and over and over and over and over, and then a family friend would come over, or sometimes even a family relative, and they or your teacher would sit down with you and tell you the exact same thing, word for word, what your parents did. And it was like somebody gave you the Holy Grail. And it was, this beautiful breakthrough. And you go running to your parents and you say, Uncle just told me this and I can't believe it. And I've been this way and all of a sudden your parents look at each other and they go, we've been telling you that for 10 years. But because it comes from your parents, you're not able to hear it. You're not able to distinguish the possibility of listening to something that they've given you as advice and using it and moving forward. Now, are there some families that have halos over their head that they don't deal with those issues? Of course there are. What I'm talking about is the stereotypical family where some of these issues are caused by the breakdowns. And my question, and for everybody today as we look at this, is I'm curious to see, how did you grow up? What were the filters like between you and the communication with your parents? And now when we look at us as maybe being parents, how do we communicate with our youth? And let's take a look and see as we go through this, let's see how you were shaped. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of, in just a short time at the microphone, in just a short time of us talking, in 2 to 3 minutes, see how some of the ways in which you filter conversations are impacting and have impacted you along the way. So first I'm going to check in with my co-host and see if what I said actually made sense. And if it didn't quite make sense, I'm sure she will take a moment to reinterpret it in a way that will clarify it at another level. So with that, I'm going to hand the mic over to you, Sujata.
Thank you. It made perfect sense, and it what you said was it holds true yesterday, today, and I guess it'll be tomorrow also. In the past weeks, I've also had conversations along similar lines, and it's always the same. Like it's like a doctor not treating one's own family member, or a therapist or a counselor not treating one's own family member. They may do that with outsiders but not within their family. Why? Because it seems there is always going to be a platform where either familiarity breeds contempt, or it is based on that you're already made up your mind, or you're judgmental, or you're too close to the subject. So that is what happens, that parents keep telling their children, but if an outsider says the same thing, or they just listen to it, they fall for it, and they will come back. And even if we say, I told you so, that will probably go over their heads. So that is what happens even today. And it doesn't matter what age the child is, whether it is a 5-year-old, 10-year-old, or even a 40-year-old. So I do resonate with what you were saying, and it happens even now. And yes, so that's where it is. That's how it is. When I was growing up, I gave my mother a hard time, and she had a lot to deal with her life on her plate, because she was a young widow bringing up 3 daughters on her own. And today, when I look back, I can, and I'm always sorry for the time that I gave us. But I do make the changes in parenting after having learned the lessons. So, communication has to be key in where you're open, and try to foster with the children that, okay, they can have differing views, they may not always agree with you. At least listen to each perspective, each side, and then come to decisions. That's been my aim for quite some time now.
Mm. So what I'd like to do is, I know that we have some interesting dynamics with people in the audience today. So I think it's going to be a fun discussion to see how each person that is on the stage, because I think we have a spectrum of age. I think we have, thanks to Ron, we now have a spectrum of male and female. Woo woo! Thanks for coming up, Ron. And we'll get you caught up on the question here, Ron. I think, and Sujata, as I was trying to write something down so that I can put it out to Clubhouse. How are the filters between parents to kids and kids to parents? And how do we cause a breakthrough in this? Does that sound good? Awesome. So with that, I'm going to pass the microphone over to Alyssa. Hi, Alyssa. What do you think about our lovely topic?
Oh, boy.
And I know you just, by the way, you just had a breakthrough with your parents.
I did recently because Sujata, kind of summed it up a bit for me already. And we're not obnoxious kids. There's 3 of us, and we were just very told, not to touch things, and because my dad was very like I don't know. I know I was scared of him. So, but my mom was like, we would, push the limit with her. She would, run around, chase us, break brushes on our butts, and, drive her nuts. But not horribly, like killing people or anything, or stealing or breaking the law. This is as little kids, we did fight. And I remember one time we swam growing up. She pulled over. This is the only time she did this. And communication is a huge downfall in my family. And I don't have a bad family. There's no communication, especially with my dad and me. That's the worst. And then for instance, none of us know anything about his family, who his family was. Nothing. Never talked about it. We didn't even know when his father died. He went to a funeral by himself. I mean, I learned a few things about him, but we kind of are in a not good relationship. But recently, I noticed his truck wasn't in the driveway and in the morning, and I wouldn't see him for 2 days. And I thought my dad actually left. I thought me, I feel like he thinks I'm a loser. I know to an extent he thinks I'm a loser because he doesn't understand how the process of this degenerating disease I have mixed with now a reaction, and then all these injuries from the nursing job. And because he's just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go. And I never got hurt growing up. I even worked for him. I did lots of physical stuff, and he's a carpenter contractor, and he just never talked to me like he could talk to anybody else. I don't know if he just thought I was weird, but I know I was the quiet one. I was just, I don't know if that had something to do with it. I don't know. But I was the only one chosen to come and work for him because he knew how well I was on my feet and strong and stuff. So he kind of used me in a way, but it paid for my college. But anyway, so I thought he left, and here he went. He took my mom's place to go be with my sister who had a surgery on her knee. And I finally asked my mom one day, like 3 days later, maybe, because I was like depressed now. And none of us spoke of him. And I said, finally, did Dad leave? And she said, yes. And I was like, oh. She goes, well, he had to go down and help Kristen because you had so many appointments this week. And she has to go with me to the appointments. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I realized like my appreciation for him because I was really upset. I wasn't showing it, but so that was kind of a breakthrough, and wanting me to have more respect for him because he just, the way he is, he's a quiet person when it comes to people that he doesn't understand, which is me apparently. But otherwise, we don't have great relationships with my sisters. We try, well, at least my older sister tries, but it gets ugly. But she was going through a divorce, and we literally got into a fist fight in our front yard. That never happened before. Like, we used to beat each other up, but not to the extent where we wanted to hurt each other. And that was like, I don't know, last Easter or something. I don't know. But then my younger sister's like estranged. She changed in college, and it's like, I don't know, she moved to California. She got a PhD at Berkeley to study and teach there, and her husband just left, had an affair, and now that's just weird. And I feel like maybe she'll be closer to me because I just felt really sad about it for her, but she's doing fine, and I think it'll bring our family closer. And we aren't advocates of divorce. Like, this is like something that was like, whoa, this is happening in our family. And as for me and my illness, not being able to work is just, I don't know. I feel like I'm tearing my family apart. I know that I'm a big, just like they could be doing so much. I think they were gonna move to like back to the Keys. I was born in the Keys because they love, the ocean and stuff. I do too, and I was born down there, and they are from here or nearby here, and they took off after they got married. For 8 years, lived down there, but the industry was bad, so he had to come back up here for work because he's like has to be the whole like breadwinner. Even though my mom had 2 degrees and was a nurse as well, but she wanted to have them taking care of us. Nobody else, no one else was gonna babysit us. So yeah, I don't know if I answered the question right, but yeah, it's weird. And we're going through transitions, I believe, now, but nobody's around. My sister's, the other one's in Washington, D.C., the other one's in California, like I said, so it's rough. Yeah, so I'll hand the mic back to Coach.
Thank you so much, Sister Alyssa. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Michelle. Michelle, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I'm here.
All right.
I think me as a teenager with my parents, I guess I grew up with my mother with low self-esteem, and she had some mental issues during that time. At 12, I was at 12 years old, I would say. And I didn't have any positive role models for my mother. I had other role models, my friends. I remember going to my friend's house. Her mother was a good Christian. I remember going to another friend. So I had positive role models in my life. But, and I know as an adult, I saw some of that negativity that I learned from my mother that I did not want to be like. I think if a parent should be an example to other children, sometimes words tell them what to do or shouldn't do that because this is going to happen to you. Because kids generally don't listen to that. They listen to your actions. Your actions go with what you say, and it's so natural for children to act on what how their parents behaving, because words do mean something to me, but the actions have to go with it. So I was, even with my children, I thought I had it all together because I got saved and I was 20 years old. I was completely wrong. I got divorced. Oh gosh, 16 years later, was not a good marriage at all. And I thought, oh no, I'm a good parent. I'm this and that. And I'm being honest with myself. Yes, I was a good parent. Yes, but at the same time, I see myself of the mistakes I made as a parent too, because my children right now won't get married because I'm sure it's because they saw the divorce in my marriage and my actions and what I did and what I did in my life does reflect them. You know what I mean? It took me years to figure that out. And I think I grew, learn about what my parents were like and what they did. And some of these things I saw them that I learned, I took on those traits, not knowing it. You know how when you're a kid, I'm not going to act like my parents. I'm not going to do that. I'm sure you heard that. And you're like, oh gosh, I did that. I yelled like my mother did. Oh my gosh, I swore at my kids like my mother did at me, And I think my divorce, even me as a parent, I failed my kids. And I have to admit that in certain things. I always had I'm going to be honest with you. When I was young, yes, my marriage was dysfunctional because my family life was dysfunctional. And when I was a Christian, I lied to myself thinking you're okay, you're saved, you know God, and you know some scripture, but no, you don't. I was young and I should have stayed in the Lord and get mentors. I wish I had them in the church back then, and I should have grown first before I got married and had children. And so I didn't have to go back where I learned when I was a child. So that's what I have to say about, why children rebel against their parents. A lot of it is because how the parents are. My parents are doing it, so why should I? I think we need to be an example for our kids, and that's what they're looking at. They want to see how you talk right, how you walk right, how you're living your life the way God wants you to live. And your children were too. Well, not all the time. They have to. I know a lot of Christians too, whose children fall apart and, raise them right, and they go into drugs anyways. Think about Billy Graham, Franklin Graham. His life was falling apart, and then he was led to Christ. So, that's what I learned in my life, Coach. You can have the mic.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you for sharing. And with that, I'm going to just do a quick reset here. This is the 24-hour Bible Study Club, and you are on Life's podcast, VIDEOCAST with SUJATA and Coach Les. And we are live here today on recordings on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. And today we're discussing how are the filters between parents to kids and kids to parents? And how do we break through that? Where are we at with all of that? How's it impacted your life? And with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Annetta.
Thank you, Coach. I've been sitting here thinking. First of all, thank you for opening this room. You and SUJATA just always being here and being present, fully present. That's a gift in itself. And I just like to say it's good to have both of you here today.
Thank you.
Thinking about this topic today, just say it one more time for me, Coach, because I think I got it, but I want to make sure I stay on point.
No worries. We didn't get it until 10 after. So, it's okay. We had a whole breakdown around what we were going to talk about today. So I'm okay repeating. I'm okay repeating it a few times, Annette.
I appreciate it. It's a good topic, but I just want to make sure because I can go there, but I don't need to today. I want to stay on topic. So thank you, Coach.
Yep. So how are the filters between parents to kids and kids to parents? So how are yours? Like, what do they look like? And how do we break through these? And have you broken through? Or as some people are, they're still in the breakdown. And, we're... I'll share what I'm going to share after you share. So I've just had a brilliant idea, and so I will share it after you. So go ahead, Annetta. I'm curious to hear.
I think we're still, for me, there's been breakthrough with the filters. The pandemic was the one that just broke it wide open because so much was being taken away. So much was awareness was happening. And as we were being thrust into the change that we really wanted to see, it just wasn't the way we wanted it. The filters that I experienced really just broke wide open so that I did not have to talk as much as I thought I needed to talk, or the way that I needed to talk. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. And I listened more and I heard things that I did not even know were happening or occurring because of these filters that were in place. I was blessed to have a mother and a father present, active, engaging, challenging in my life. And I can say now, I think if you had asked me this about 10 years ago, I'd be saying a whole different tune. But the filters were necessary for me because the conversations, I could not have handled them the way that I thought I could have or should have. And I thought I was being sheltered or demeaned as I got older. But now I can say I was not. They did the best that they could with what they knew and had experience and their filters.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was a blessing for me, even though I didn't think so at the time.
Yep.
But now I can say if I had been no filtered, I'd be a hotter mess than I was 10 years ago, still today. And that would not have been good for my children. I would have passed on those filters that no longer, and that's why I said that pandemic just busted everything. And the change in the conversations that had wanted to always see happened. And so now I don't have to really have as many filters, or if any, now that I really think about it. And that's a good thing because I'm having some wonderful, authentic conversations. And I'm not only seeing the change, I'm experiencing it in my family, with our children, my husband and I, our children, and generations between me and my children. So it's a good thing now for me. But I also see those struggling because they are wanting to use those before filters, those lifelong filters, and it won't work. I can't, it won't work. So that's my thought, Coach. Thank you for the grace and the space today, or the room today.
You are very, very welcome. And what a beautiful explanation of the journey that you've taken. I mean, you know, this is where my my learning is still growing for me. Is I know that there's biblical verses that can back up what I'm about to say, but one of the things that I know for sure, right, is to honor thy parents. And that's tough to do sometimes. You know, there's a lot of families out there, a lot of kids out there that, you know, have been abused, all of that. What I think, though, one of the things that just has kind of percolated to the top of my mind as you were sharing is that statement that you made. And I'm going to do my best to repeat it. And I may, you know, add a little flavor to it as well. We as human beings do the best we can with what we have. So parents are who they are because of all of the life that they have had happen to them. They respond the way they do because of the way they were taught. Maybe not taught by their parents, but taught by life, taught by their surroundings, taught by the marketplace, taught by school, taught by their pastors and religious teachers, taught by all of these areas that then shape them a certain way. Now, some of those teachings, as I say this, may not have molded that person in a beautifully powerful way. Some of those teachings may have been created a very defensive, very negative-minded, very abusive response. And in that, the way that they show up as a parent for their own child is defensive, abusive, and to them, it occurs as that's the way to do it because that's what they've learned. That's what they see. That's what they experience. So if I learned it this way, then that's how I'm going to pass it on to my kids. And they don't even realize the huge handicap or the huge breakdown that is, because it's like asking a fish if it knows what water is. because it's in the water. And so for a parent that may have abused their kid, and they came from abuse and maybe not even from their parents, but from some authority figure, and now they pass it on down as a filter to the next person. And the challenge becomes, how do we, this is everybody on stage, everybody in the audience, everybody listening, whoever's listening to the replays, wherever, or listening, throughout, how do we support those parents and kids having a breakthrough in how they deliver information and training and development, and how they receive it? And how do we, because I tell you what, I've stepped into some messy families in my time. Some that I haven't taken on as clients. Some that I've said no to due to the messiness. And individually, as we look at those people or we interact with them, they seem perfectly normal. So that to the outside appearance, it's like, what's your problem? He's a great guy. She's a great gal. I don't see anything wrong, until the doors close. And then the mechanism is broken. And that's why, to me, knowledge creates the empowerment of being able to look in the mirror, creates the empowerment for kids to be able to say, yo, something's not quite right at home. Or parents to go, something's not quite right with my kids. What's happening? And then to discover where the nuclear bomb happened. And I'm excited about this, because for me, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the filters make a difference. And thank you so much, Annetta. Really appreciate your share.
You're welcome, Coach. One last thing to that. When you said the doors closed, that's what that pandemic did. When we got locked down, we didn't know what to do or how to do, because we've never been put in a place where we had to be with one another that way. We get up and we can be together for an hour, and then we're off to school, work, or wherever. And then we come back, and then we have our activities that can say, I don't have to be around that person. I really don't have to interact, or I don't have to be exposed to what to say or how to say it, or be perceived anything other than what I want to project. But when you're locked down, for as long as we were locked down, you're right, the doors closed and the veils came open. Thanks, Coach.
Oh, you're very welcome. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Mr. Ron. How are you, sir? It's great to see you.
Hey, Coach Les, how you doing? Oh, well, in regards to the topic, I think the things we pass down to our children, at least for me, really wasn't evident until I really decided to make some major changes in my life emotionally, because I never really dealt with my feelings. And I'm a son of a veteran who, I'm not going to say he did or didn't, because I don't want to place judgment on him, but I was an only child, and so I was kind of spoiled, kind of lived an entitled life. But I think the era that I came up with in the 60s that, partying was a big deal for my family. So I learned how to smoke pot from my dad. I was attracted when I was younger to women that smoked cigarettes, like my mom, and the language that was used. Now that I'm working on self-esteem, those were just common languages that having an obnoxious only child, you know. So there was a lot of feelings that I internalized, good or bad, you know. But the beauty in all this is I'm 52 less, and this past year has been the greatest year of my life. You know, I started doing transformational, got a coach, got a mentor, been practicing, you know, daily affirmations, meditations, prayers, and daily, you know, so it's like a reconditioning of my mind. And the beautiful thing is I'm conscious about it. So like the young woman was speaking, Elisa, I can almost feel the language that her parents used by the way she described and the power of the words that she used to describe herself. So in saying that, one of the things that I learned from my parents was being judgmental. You know, as long as you were doing better than the next person, then you were doing okay. So everything was kind of based off of comparing to the next family or to friends or to the neighbors and the such. And at 52, I guess I did the same pattern raising my stepdaughter. So I wasn't emotionally there for her. She went through her challenges and changes. And in saying all this, she's in a beautiful place now because she's aware that the power of what other people put in your mind and, you know, our parents and who we are. When we come Christ-centered and inspired by God, we become whole. And I tried to use all these things as excuses during inner child healing, but you know, understanding how trauma affects people, like you said, they did the best they could. So I thank you for those words. I think they resonate with me to help me be more forgiving today and be able to practice compassion and unconditional love. So thank you, Coach. And I got some rain here. Whew, let me breathe. I'm trying to cook dinner. It's raining, and my wife just brought a bunch of groceries in. So thank you all. God bless you all. Stay close. Lots of love. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Ron. Appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Sister Jeanette.
Good afternoon, good evening. You know, this is a great topic. It's like a parenting discussion. You know, from my experience, there was no filtering that I received from my mother or my father. You know, they both had mental health issues. And one of the things that my mom did that was really good is she made sure I had real good men to that. She had a lot of mental health issues. If she had been diagnosed, she would have been severely bipolar. And she did have these triggers that if you set off the trigger, it would be very difficult. Knowing her history and her past, because I would ask her questions. So, you know, we did have that communication where I can at least have some form of evaluation of why she was the way she was, and come to the term that, you know, she was the best she knew how to be. And that was how I approached her growing up. And it's a very healthy way to do it. I didn't realize how healthy it was until I had my own children. Of course, they had mental health issues as well. What I did is I set us up to go through therapy. So we learned, I didn't have the best role models. And then what had happened with that is I would teach parenting classes to parents because the school district would realize, I could be beneficial there because of the way I worked with the teachers that taught my children, on how to work with them. So the filters were there with mine, and with regards to I was constantly guiding them, constantly, making notes, making sure that I.
A crowdfunding.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I learned all that through parenting classes and going through that, knowing to discuss things with my children and the right way to do it. And and that was beneficial. That was helpful for me. One of the things too that I see one of the things I gained out of that was being able to self-evaluate. And not only is the filter important, but as a parent, look at those filters. Are they working? Are they not? Are they good, productive? And being able to evaluate whether they work or not and make the changes. I come across many parents and they don't realize what their children's needs are and how to communicate with them and what filters to put in place. And it was noticeable during the pandemic, when they're locked down with their kids 24/7, and now they're seeing what teachers have to put up with, when they're at school. How are you behaving in school? How you behave in school? And being able to be receptive to that. But on the other hand, you had the other parent said, I can't wait for you to go to school because let them deal with you. So you have both sides there. And so look at the filtering, evaluate it, look at whether, are you being impactful in the way you communicate and filter with your children. That's very important. You want to make sure they can take care of themselves, they can make the right decisions, they can have healthy discussions with you about everything. And sometimes those filters can be so guarded that they don't come to you. And where do they learn it? They learn it from their peers. And there are certain topics you do not want your children to learn from their peers. So be mindful of that and learn what kind of communication and at what level. A lot of parents underestimate the level of communication they can have with their children and the ages. You'd be surprised what children learn on the playground. So be mindful of it, evaluate it, continually grow in the communication, those filters that you use. Don't use the filters to overprotect your children. Know what they need to learn from you. And that's my share, Coach.
Awesome, Jeanette. Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to just have Sujata share a little bit about her thoughts and comments on some of the shares. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're going to create for tomorrow, for tomorrow's podcast, because I have a nice direction to head to. So Sujata, the mic is yours.
Thank you. That was awesome shares all around. And, I just have to say this, that whether it was our parents or whether it is us, like I wrote in the book, we are not given a manual how to be perfect parents, son, daughter-in-law, or whatever the title or the role that you are entrusted with. And you actually learn on the job. And so sometimes we may do with the best of the surroundings that we are put in. And that's how life is all about. It's all about experiences. So there will be learnings and lessons which we can term as mistakes and learning, whichever way you put it. But what you learn while growing up, you can have a better informed decision making or a better way to progress when it comes and you are in the same role model. Like when parents are there and the children may not understand the parents always, and there may be a communication gap. But when we become parents, if we have learned and we are, we don't make the same mistakes or try not to make the same mistakes, not always possible because it depends on the situation and the children. We cannot really predict how the children will turn out. So based on that, we make do with the best of the learnings that we learned, and also to put into place a new form of communication or a new form of way to get through those filters and have those breakdowns, if that makes sense.
Awesome, Sujata. Thank you so much. And I just want to take a quick moment to, one, thank everybody for being here. We got off to a rocky start, and I think we jumped into it. And I think, where we ended up, I think made a difference. I think we're on track for something for tomorrow. What I'd like to come back and create tomorrow is, how has social media, cell phones, iPads, tablets impacted the communication and integrity between parent and kid? And I think based on some of the conversation that we've had today, I think tomorrow is going to kind of be really take it up a notch and have us look and see what are we focusing on. And if I were to pick up, so here's an example for me. If I were to pick up your iPad or your phone, does it have YouVersion Bible on it? Does it have Enduring Word on it? Does it have areas where I can see and experience that you are growing as a human being rather than being plugged into some piece of electronic equipment that is brainwashing you? And I'm not going to say much more because I'll steal my topic from myself. So with that, Anetta, that's beautiful. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I thank each and every one of you for being here. Sujata, did you want to say anything before we close?
Looking forward to tomorrow, and I've noted it down in case I have brain fog.
Amen. All right. Well, with that, unless there's any other questions, let me just check them in the back channel here. Oh, I like that. Ron Kyle said something kind of fun in the back in the room chat that I'm actually going to say out loud for the people that are listening to this as a podcast. He said a couple things. He said, be conscious of who is creating / using words. Positivity can be cultivated. Love that. Picked up the language your parents used to judge you, which is so true. We are little computer sponges. We are absorbing everything around us. And if parents think that they can just be in a different room and shout and have an argument, or that they can, I'm 8 months pregnant, but the baby can't hear me, and you have screaming matches with your significant other, I'm here to tell you all of that is going to have an impact on that little bambino. And I believe it never stops happening. Even as teenagers, our kids are watching us like a hawk hunts for a mouse. They are looking to see how we react in situations. They're looking to see how we interact with different people. You know, they're being taught and demonstrating stuff at school, and then they come home and see us doing, if it's a bad thing, and they come home and see us doing the same thing, guess what they're going to do? You know, 1 + 1 = 1. That's for sure. They're going to be the one following it. So with that, I want to thank Patricia for popping in. I want to thank Remy for being in the audience. Looking forward, Remy, for you stepping up on stage when it works. Please excuse my dogs in the background. Jeanette, great. Thank you so much for being here. Ron Kyle, thank you for being here. Annetta, thank you for being here. Michelle, thank you. Alyssa, thank you. And of course, to my co-host, Sujata, really appreciate it. And with that, I am going to do my fun little close down. And I look forward to seeing you same time tomorrow. We'll be starting at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Mountain Time. And as for, it's 5 a.m. Singapore time. So there we go. And it's tomorrow there already. So we can bless Sujata with her tomorrow day already. So with that, here we go.
Coaching with Les has doubled my practice.
We've increased our sales by about 33%, blowing all of our goals out of the water.
In my first 6 months, I actually grew my business with his help over 500%, literally 500%.
Les Hill is the type of person that invests back in you and back into your company. So if you're looking for a business coach with integrity, choose Les Hill.